These are the daily crowds at the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. For centuries, baseline rules have restricted non-Muslims and required women to observe strict, modest dress. These gates represent geographic boundaries with immense religious weight. Historically, any violation triggered immediate and severe local enforcement. By arriving in Asari, a high-ranking Indian official challenged a code of conduct that has defined the city's public life for generations, turning a routine diplomatic meeting into a point of intense international friction. The response was immediate. Social media feeds were flooded with comments from users across the globe, many of whom condemned the visit as an affront to the sanctity of the city. However, the narrative took an unexpected turn when the most vocal defenders of the visit turned out to be Arab Muslims, specifically those living in Saudi Arabia. The controversy quickly shifted away from the politician herself. It became an internal online civil war, with Arab commentators clashing directly with Muslims from South Asia and other regions. This exchange exposed a raw internal struggle over who actually holds the authority to interpret and enforce the rules of the faith in its most sacred locations. To shut down the international criticism, Arab commentators leaned heavily into the history of this Arabian landscape. Their core argument was straightforward: our land, our religion, our rules. They argued that their direct historical and ancestral ties to the birthplace of the religion grant them a unique, senior authority over its management that non-Arabs simply don't possess. This is a form of geographic gatekeeping. By positioning the Arabian Peninsula as a pulsing epicenter of authority, these commentators effectively treat religious heritage as a form of cultural property. They framed the Saudi government's decision to host the Indian delegation as a matter of national sovereignty, a choice that outsiders, regardless of their faith, have no right to question. This logic transforms universally sacred sites into exclusive cultural territories, governed by the specific political and social priorities of the local population. The online defense often turned personal. Arab users began deploying a specific label against South Asian critics, dismissing them as converted Muslims. The term reminds non-Arabs that their ancestors were not part of the original founding community, but instead adopted the faith and were given Arabic names later in history. In India, millions of believers form some of the largest Muslim communities on the planet. Yet the converted label seeks to place this entire demographic in a subordinate position to those with Arab lineage. The rhetoric peaked when Arab commentators explicitly stated, "You and we are not the same," and that their opinions on Saudi domestic policy were irrelevant. This hierarchy suggests that within a global community of billions, power is still measured by ancestral bloodlines and proximity to the Middle East. The clothing controversy in Medina brought long-standing structural tensions to the surface. As India projects its diplomatic influence abroad, it has forced a public reckoning within the Islamic world regarding its own internal power dynamics. The legacy of this visit shows that in modern diplomacy, sovereign law is increasingly taking precedence over the expectations of the global religious community. Outside observers often assume that global religions function as a single, unified bloc. While the theology of a global faith is shared, the scale of cultural capital often tips heavily toward the region where that faith began. Ultimately, the Medina visit confirms that even within a faith of billions, the invisible borders of geography and ancestry still dictate who holds the final word.